Hello everyone and welcome to Property Technical, the channel where we discuss various things about properties and how this information can benefit you. Now, we are recording this under trying times and I hope you are doing well wherever you may be. So today we are discussing how the coronavirus pandemic is affecting the property market, namely residential properties. It's a fairly obvious thing to say that the property market itself is facing challenges with regards to growth. However, there are individual factors that are driving the price either upwards or putting a downwards pressure. Whilst I don't have a crystal ball to make predictions, what we're going to do is look at the aspects that are driving the prices up or down and see how it applies to any particular kind of market segment. Now, before I begin, a quick disclaimer that the following information is mostly concentrated on the Australian property market and, to be more specific, the Sydney metropolitan area. However, the general information may apply to other parts of the world, wherever you may be. So let's start with the Reserve Bank's interest rate cut. So now that the interest rates are very, very low, this is the incentive for buyers to go ahead and sign up to a loan. The repayments may be a bit easier. So the barrier for entry becomes a little bit easier. For now, that is. This has a positive effect on the prices, meaning the prices will be driven upwards. Now, following from the Reserve Bank's interest cuts, banks are also adding some degree of leniency towards repayments and interest holidays and things like that. So while this is not necessarily a direct benefit for new home buyers, it sure eases pressure on the people who already have a existing loan. The effect is that this will reduce the people who are affected by income loss and things like that under the pandemic situation. Less number of people may be required to foreclose, or they may be pressured to sell their house and go into rental or something like that. So overall, this might not necessarily move the property price up or down, but what it is doing is preventing the price from sliding down drastically. The share market. As we may know, that the share market has hit its bottom or near bottom at about March, April-ish, and the situation is still fairly grim. Now, some people did see it coming and they sold before the collapse. Now, what are they going to do? These people, they might go ahead and purchase back the shares they sold at a very low price and they'll be left with a balance of cash. Or they might find that the share market is still a bit too volatile. They might want to put their money in property. They have to park their money somewhere in some sort of investment, depending on how much money they have. So the property market then becomes an alternative to the share market. Whilst the number of people in this category is very small, but this will increase the price because they add to the demand on the property market. Now, here in Australia, our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, he announced that new home builds or renovations at a value of over $150,000 will be getting a $25,000 grant. This applies to either singles, couples. So what effect does it have on the property market? Well, this applies to new and renovated properties. And because the owner of said property will have $25,000 grant given to them, which otherwise they wouldn't have, they might pass that on to the buyer. Not necessarily the whole $25,000, but they might be willing to negotiate a bit more because, you know, their margins are there. This will obviously drive the price down a little bit, but it is only specific to renovated and new builds. Now, another thing that has been happening in New South Wales, or Sydney Metro at least, is to do with the rules about subdivision. The state of New South Wales is putting pressure on the local councils to allow duplexes and terraces to be built on lands that previously councils wouldn't allow. And there were a lot of pushback and there were negotiations and back and forth and things like that. A lot of the councils are now rolling out communications in relation to what they will and will not allow, or what the rezoning map is like. So what this particularly does is it gives the green signal for builders to go ahead and start putting offers on certain properties that are in the market, not all of them. What this will do is basically put upward pressure on land value, particular lands that can be developed. However, as they are buying up those land for a higher price because they'll make their money back, other properties in the area is also being driven up because of this same upward pressure. This has a little bit less to do with coronavirus. However, it is slightly correlated as well, because a lot of people are not willing to go to market now, right? Those who can delay the sale of their property, they are doing that. Possibly a wise choice because of the uncertainty presented by this current market. So as the supply goes down, the demand goes up. This, however, is only relevant to developable lands. Land value is going up, and the proof of that is that we ourselves sold a property recently, and quite above the reserve price as well. I'll talk about that on a separate video, but those who banked on land are doing well now. However, it is not without its risks. Job loss or loss of income. This is most certainly driving prices down. People who could potentially afford a house just driven out of the market because of their income situation. Now this more so, not primarily, but more so is affecting first home buyers or the entry-level properties, let's say apartments or villas and things like that, where people would want to, buy their first property, pay it off or pay it halfway or something, and then move on to a bigger house or something like that. So in that segment of the market, there is definitely a downwards fall because the demand is falling. Going with the same thing, the downwards fall of economy, global economy, if I may say so. Australian economy is very much linked to what's happening in the world. If the global economy falls, our economy does as well. And with that, the property market goes down. It's pretty much connected. As far as foreign investment goes, that has reduced to a great extent as of late because of the new taxation rules. Not that it doesn't exist, it does, but less so. Now, with the falling global economy, that is going to dry up even more. Well, that has a very obvious correlation of the overall market, the entire country's property market going down because of that. Now, the next point is to do with people not going out and about. What I mean by that is we drove down Sydney City the other day on Friday evening, and it was very empty. So a lot of people are sitting at home, maybe playing video games or whatever. The point being, they're not spending money out as much. And also, people are not going in holidays. Of course, everything is shut. People can't travel. We can't go overseas and things like that. So those who do go out overseas for holidays and things like that, they have that money. They didn't spend that money overseas. So they could potentially use that towards buying their next property. Or if they were on the market and they can just dip into the holiday. They're not going into holiday anytime soon. So might as well use that money. This is apparently not so uncommon. So this is only related to people who have that sort of money to buy into the luxury property market, the affluent demography. I have seen that luxury properties are still actually moving at about the same price as it used to pre-COVID. Now, the next thing is to do with fear. People are sitting on the fence, biding their time. They are thinking that the market is about to fall, and therefore they are not going into the market. So the demand from this group is falling, right? However, at the same time, people who think that the market is falling is holding their property back. They're not going into sale unless they have to. This is driving the price up. So not that properties are not selling, they are selling, but there is fewer turnover. People are not buying so quickly, and there aren't many to choose from either. So it's going both ways. Overall, such a thing does have a negative effect on the market, but I wouldn't say too much out of fear, that is. It works both ways. So the next thing is to do with flood of apartments, new apartments. For the last number of years, they have been making a whole lot of apartments in Sydney metropolitan area, that is. And as it happens, there is now a kind of an oversupply, and therefore the property prices for this segment, the new apartments, is sort of on the slide downwards. Also, rental for these properties are sloping downwards as well. Tie in with this, investments is also drying up in apartments. Apartments used to be a reasonably decent place to put money in as far as investment goes, but now not so much. And one other thing that COVID is not helping in this segment is that in Sydney there are lots of overseas students. Now, as of late, those who went back to their home countries to visit or whatever, or those who were going to come, they cannot come back. They are back wherever their home country is. Now, what this did is created a whole lot of vacancies in apartments, mostly around universities and so forth. This has an overall effect of driving rent down, and as the rents are falling, people see it as less lucrative investment. Therefore, money is drying up in that segment and apartment prices are on the downward slide. Will it recover? That's another thing. I still see a whole lot of new apartments being built and they're going to come into the market. I can't see that if this trend of making new apartments keep on happening, it will shoot the price up, even at least not until the COVID situation is sorted and people start coming back to Australia for studying or working or whatever the situation may be. So how do I conclude this video? Well, people want to know, is the prices falling? Is the prices rising? Well, as much as it is enticing to say one word answer, yeah, the price is falling or the price is rising, it's not that simple. If you are looking to buy a land to invest in or to develop, you're going to have a hard time finding something for cheap. Now is not the time to buy a land. Somehow it's the reality. However, now is a great time to buy apartments if you want to live in one. You can negotiate a lot harder, and if you're going to rent into an apartment, they're desperate. Good houses are in short supply, so negotiating down the price of those is not that easy. New builds and renovated properties are actually coming into the market in its steady supply, so there is a bit of a negotiation room there. If that's the market that you are aiming to buy from, don't be afraid to push back a little bit. So that's all I had to say on this video about the effects of coronavirus on Australian property market. I will see you in the next video with more information about different topics. By all means, if you would like me to talk about a particular topic, please do leave a note on the comment section below, and I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, you take care of yourself.